Okay, so look, in Australia, the NRL season is next week. Is it next week? Yes, it's the first week of March.
Yeah.
Are you aware of this NRL dispute between the NRL and the Players Association?
No.
Okay, so check this out. So they've been I've heard of it, but it seems to be the most covert, even though it isn't. Dispute.
Is this related to Selwyn Cobber? Did he?
Not everything ties like
decreasing their pays because of
wait,
him.
where does Selwyn Cobos fit in all of this nonsense?
I heard he scored 3 tries. Okay, that's good.
My boy Cobo, man. Gonna get a Cobo jersey. Anyway, so the NRL, the body, and the Players Association, basically, they have an issue. So this is basically, I mean, in major leagues, they have been. For example, in the NBA, there's a Players Association as well, right? And so they actually have players that represent. It's a union, effectively, if you want to think about it.
Yeah, there's one in cricket as well. There's one in
exactly. So their job is to represent the best interests of the players, right?
Yeah.
So the NRL, as much as we may not believe it, is making money, right? Like they are doing well every year. They're good superstars. The product is good. It's.
I've noticed crowds up.
Yeah,
I've noticed more crowds.
I have to see them.
more
Well,
interest in the product.
dude, like they can't not do that if they have a new team like Dolphins. Like you can only grow a new team if it's growing, right?
And there's a documentary on the Dolphins.
Exactly.
Well,
like the fact that people are watching documentaries shows me that there's demand. Right?
Yeah.
So this is coming off the back of that. But effectively, what happened is before Christmas, the NRL announced an increase in salary caps for competitions, which saw the men's cap rise by around 25% and the women's by 153% because the baseline of those games is smaller. So you think, wow, that's good. Players would love that, right? Wrong. Nah, they don't love that.
They don't?
So what happened? They don't. So what they didn't like was the NRL did not consult the Players Association at all and made this decision unilaterally, right? Yeah. So if it's basically, I want to be heard, you can't be making, it's not that, hey, we don't, like, I'm sure they'd hate it if they decrease the salary cap, right? Yeah. But the fact that they're arcing up when their salary cap is increased is more, well, because when you hear this in different circles, and this is what I initially thought until I dug a little bit deeper, you hear a pay dispute. Yeah. Like, we want more money, right? Like, because if you hear a league association,
is a lot.
It's a decent amount. I heard like the NRL made 500 mil or something last year or something like that. So look, it's big. It's not as big as other, but it's doing. Ironically, it's not even as, it's not the highest sport in Australia, like AFL, which is, anyway, that's neither here nor there. So off the back of that, basically the players want a seat at the table. They want a proper conversation with the NRL. You can't be making decisions. And it's about a combination of things, apparently. This is what's written out there. So better terms for the most vulnerable players. What do they mean? They mean people coming up in the system, like the grassroots. New past players programs. You hear a lot of things about, the past legends that have concussions and stuff that are out. And how were they like household names and now like out in the street and stuff like that?
Yeah, I remember seeing
stuff like that.
I forgot which player it was, but I remember seeing he was pushing.
It's out there,
like a garbage truck or something.
Fair arrangement rights, improved injury hardship fund. So there's basically a possibility of a strike.
Ooh.
So what happens is every year, before the NRL season, which is literally next week. I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, so it might come out there. They have like a media shoot, right? Yeah. And the captains come out there. So this is, I didn't even realize this. This is the second year that this hasn't happened because the NRL players are not, they don't want to do anything with the actual NRL. And they are threatening, there is a possibility of an actual strike. Like there. So like right now, again, it's just like a lot of things. Yeah, you've heard of it. It's not a big deal, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, NRL. So what happens if they say, we don't want to play, or we play 1-2 rounds and people are into it because they want footy's back. Yeah. And then they stop because that's the best way to do it.
Major ramifications.
If you want to do it, right? So there's major ramifications of sponsors, teams. You have the Gold Coast Dolphins, which is a 1 year. They have ticket stuff like that.
Sponsors, teams, TV deals.
Yeah, exactly. So these TV deals are priced according to like the amount of games played. So I think it's an interesting development.
The flow-on effect would be like if they do start it up at some point.
Yeah.
The stadiums have to book all this sort of stuff. Like what's going to happen? Like So hopefully they can figure it out before. It's like a couple of days left.
I mean, the other thing that it's been reported, again, it is about money, is the revenue share.
Yeah.
So I think this is interesting because I'm not too sure how a revenue share would work amongst the clubs. But yeah, like the spokesman for this are the players and the star players at that, right? So they're unified in that. But it's interesting because we don't know the conversations behind closed doors, but it seems to be a rhetoric that players are greedy.
Yeah.
And I think it's why you hate social media, right? Like when you hear stuff like that and I see like Facebook posts, you're like, these greedy guys, they're people working on minimum wage and they're asking for like, I think the minimum salary is like 120K or something like that.
Yeah.
And they want to share. But like, you got to think about it from the other perspective. If you're in a union and you want to have like that conversation and you see your employer growing, you see the revenue there, and all you're simply asking for is transparency and a conversation at the table.
Like, so, yeah, some sort of
surely that's
back and forth at least.
That's conversation there, and the fact that it's not that forthcoming, it just perpetuates that what is the NRL? So the business, like, what are they doing? Where they're hoarding all this money from? Like, should it be out there? So I think it's really interesting because, again, these are one of these stories where you've heard about it until you don't, right? And I think what's interesting is, again, the culture. In America, the NBA has gone through periods of lockdown where they literally stopped the season. I remember
Pay disputes.
Pay disputes. Yeah. And it was outright nothing but pay disputes, right?
Yeah.
Just pay disputes, contract disputes, etc., etc. And in America, especially in the NBA, which I'm a big fan of, there's a massive player empowerment movement where star players like LeBron and the world revolves around them. They have stuff like LeBron rules, Curry. They literally call collective bargaining agreements around these players because these players set precedents of things. If a player doesn't like it, I'm out. Trade me, motherfucker. I want to be out. Like that's literally what happened there. Where do you don't have that? And again, this is a culture thing. And the reason I say it's a culture thing is, as much as these players like want to progress that agenda, I don't see a lot of Australia. I can't almost, because they know that the average fan pays this much. They want to watch it. They're cut from the same cloth. Like it's just a little bit different culturally. Where to actually, in your like, has any sports league in Australia ever gone on strike during a season? I can't think of. Has there? Maybe a singular strike, but are we talking about a season?
No, not
in cricket. Has it ever happened for any Australian team or county team?
I mean, the cricket have like cricket players. Cricket Australia and cricket players have had their pay disputes as well. I'm pretty sure pretty recently as well with Warner. Saying he wanted to be paid more for his contract. But
a strike is intense, right? In Australia, for Australia, like I think culturally, there's just so much. There'll be so much kickback at fan level, right?
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, the fan level, all they see is the games.
Correct. Yeah,
they don't see any of the back end stuff that happens, right? No. The games is all they see and all they want, really. But I guess it would bring it to light more, right? That the pay that they're getting, and I've said this for a while now, NRL players don't get paid enough, and they should actually be getting paid way more.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
No, I think there should be.
I think your pay is. The NRL is just not an international game. It's not an
international game, right? Yeah, but they should be getting paid more because we're talking about numbers like $1 billion for a TV deal, like $500 million rep. Like this. I
think that's the main thing, that players are seeing the size of these deals, and are seeing how much their club gets, and saying,
the thing is, right? Sydney, inflation in Sydney is probably as worse as I've ever seen it. The cost of living here is insane. A lot of our wages aren't keeping up.
Yeah, of course.
And that's the hard facts. Is the rate of inflation is not keeping up with the increase in the wages, right? And I think on that level, you definitely need to increase it as well. I mean, there might be a culture disconnect with a lot of people saying just play. What the hell? But at the end of the day, these are elite sportsmen that sacrifice their whole work life, whatever, to become a sportsman.
It's true.
So they've I guess if they want more, they should be demanding more. And I think that's what
I think you can ask the question.
Yeah, definitely ask.
We're an open society to be able to ask the question.
25% is pretty big.
It is, but it's.
But I don't think it's that. I think you're right, and they want to sit at the table. They at least want it to be heard, right? Like all these other 25% overall is great, but there's all these other issues that we've seen come from the game.
Yeah, and nothing is the women's
what happens
league
after?
as well. Yeah,
what happens after the concussion stuff? All that, like what happened there? Like there need to be a bigger sort of. The NRL needs to take more care of their players even after they retire. There's got to be programs put in place because
probably one of the most intense sports if you think about it.
Yeah,
like no padding, no nothing.
A lot of Americans think we're ridiculous without not wearing any padding or helmets and stuff like that.
Soft.
But it's just like that's what we are, man. That's how NRL's been played for a long time.
It's the only way NRL's been played.
Yeah. I mean, man, if like these days it isn't as brutal as it was, right? Back in the 90s, mate, they were
mad dog.
There was some pretty big hits, pretty big shoulder charges.
Yeah, but you know what? They need to bring back the biff, man.
What biff, man? They just hold each other's shirts these days and wait for the other to hit.
Hugs, lads, hugs. I mean, you guys know jiu-jitsu, man. Just do something. Anyway.